that tells somebody who's in the industry that that there's a threat actor sitting on their network, right?
Yeah.
And the only way that you can remediate this issue is to basically take everything off, right? And then to do forensic investigation, and then to start taking things and standing them up in a safe environment, right? And stand it up in a safe environment, watch it, and then take the next one and the next one and the next one, right? What you can't do is there is no scenario where you can just turn everything back on and everything's going to be okay.
It's not a kill it, bring it back, and life's good.
It's not like you can unplug it from the wall and be like, I got to. Welcome back, 2CarGuys fans, to a topic that is close to my heart. Something I deal with every day is cyber attacks, right? So, John, you and I were just talking about this, prior to filming this. But CDK, who is a software as a solution provider for 15,000 dealerships, got hacked multiple times, right? And let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about the impact it has, and what to expect.
So it's interesting, man. I mean, I'm not that much into the cyber stuff, but I can honestly say that that's crazy, man. 15,000 car dealers.
Yep.
Are like, across the country. None of our stuff's working right now. We can't process your transaction, or they partially processed it. You probably own a car, and you're probably not going to get your tag for a long time.
Yeah, so that was one of the big things, right? We saw some reports where dealerships were reporting that they couldn't send the information to the state to process your registration because they did that with CDK's program, and what they were having to do is either get a runner to manually run that up physically, run it to the state and process it, right? Which for any of us that have gone to get their tags in person, it is never fun.
It's just a speedy process. I've actually got a single person at the tag office that I deal with, and she's pretty cool. She does a good job. Good job, Rebecca. Keep up the good work. But I'd go specifically to her for that.
Could you imagine though, if Rebecca had, 50 cars she had to process that were ahead of yours?
It happens every day.
Right.
It's unreal, man. But just imagine this though. There's legally they have a certain timeline to get these tags taken care of.
Yeah.
In different states, that law does change from state to state. So at 15,000 dealers, I don't think they're all in one state. So I'm going to guess you got states that are going to be like, we don't care, give the car back. Right. Yeah. And then what's the dealer legally going to have to do? They're going to have to take it back. So not only are they selling cars that they can't tag and title, and I could be wrong about this.
I don't know that they'd actually take the cars back. You wouldn't be able to drive them on the road until you got a tag that wasn't expired.
Well, no, because here's the other thing. You sell a car. Carvana got in a bunch of trouble for this, where they were selling cars and then they were waiting way too long to get the title paperwork straightened out. And now is this way bigger, and now it's affecting new cars and new dealers. I don't know, man. That's obviously speculation.
So the CDK issue is happening with both used and new car dealers, right?
Yeah.
I was just up at Ford the other day, and they're experiencing it, right? And they said it's impacting everything from scheduling to purchasing to everything, right? Yeah. And so that's why it's becoming a really big issue. The crazy thing is, so let me give you a little bit of background, right? Ransomware attacks are becoming more and more common, right?
Okay.
For the most part, when ransomware, attackers, when threat actors are looking for people to attack, they're not specifically going after you or like APR, for instance, right? What they're doing is they're casting a wide net. They find a vulnerability, and then they start to do research and exploit that vulnerability, right?
Right.
I saw one such instance in a major city where a threat actor actually took over the 911 system. They asked for a ransom, and the city paid the ransom immediately, right? Because it's 911, it's life or death, right? And so what they didn't do was they didn't do a really good job of figuring out how those threat actors got on the network, right?
Right. So they got
And
the instant
and they
fix, but
yes,
they
they got the instant fix, and what they didn't do is a really good job of figuring out how they got on the network and where they were, how they got in,
it's
that sort of thing.
crazy, man.
And so what the threat actors then did was sat on the network
Wow.
and did recon for 13 months. And at the end of 13 months, they basically just bricked the entire network. And the funny part was they bricked everything but the 911 system, so that was kind of interesting, but they bricked the entire network, right? And when that happened, there was nothing they could do. They couldn't
That's
process
crazy.
regular business, right? So there was all kinds of fallout that was associated with that. But the crazy part about it was um, they basically bought all new hardware and tried to stand it up so they could get going again. And as soon as they did, they were
Killed it
the
again.
bad guys were sitting in the backups, right? They had back doors
Oh my
in.
god.
So as soon as they stood up new stuff, they were in
Wow.
and ready to go. And
So you gotta think this has probably happened.
well
How
the
long have they been on Ford's system or this 15,000
well the
dealership
crazy
system?
so the crazy part is, right, a lot of times so ransomware happens for two reasons, right? One, because they've got everything that they need and it's kind of like a calling card on their way out, right? They're saying, "Hey, I've got
Right.
everything I need and now I'm going to, brick your system on the way out and, if you want to fix it, if you want to have your data, if you want to have access to this stuff, pay
Give me
me,"
money.
right? The other
Wow.
thing is they kind of use that a lot of times as smokescreen, right? So they will do ransomware, right? To open up a back door over here to start funneling your data out the back door, right? Because
Right.
if you're looking at somebody
Now
kicking on
that's
the
a
front
big
door of
data
your
leak.
house, exactly.
Yeah.
If
You're
you're
not
looking
looking
at
at the back
somebody,
door.
exactly. If you're looking at somebody that's kicking the
Wow.
front door of your house, you might not be paying attention to the people that are carrying your groceries out the back door, right? And
It's
so if
unreal,
you look at
man.
what CDK did, what happened with CDK was they had the ransomware attack, or they had an attack, and then they basically took the network down. They stood the network back up. Boom, got hit. Right. That
Wow.
tells you that tells somebody who's in the industry that somebody was some that there's a threat actor sitting on their network. Right.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can remediate this issue is to
Right.
basically take everything off, right? And then to do forensic investigation and then to
Wow.
take and start taking things and standing them up in a safe environment, right? And stand it up in a safe environment, watch it, and then take the next one and the next one and the next one,
Oh
right?
my god.
What you can't do is there is no scenario where you can just turn everything back on and
So
everything's
it's
going to be
just
okay.
it's not a kill it, bring it
It's
back,
not.
and life's
Yeah, it's not
good.
like you can unplug it from the wall and be like, "Ah, I
Wow.
got it,"
Oh,
right?
yeah, 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 the whole
Um,
turn the computer off and back on is not a situation that can
no.
work like
And so
this.
the thing is,
Wow.
the ransom in this situation, right? And I don't think they've released how much the ransom is,
Think it's
right?
a
But
data
well, so
thing though, more or less?
if you think about the ransom, do you remember the pipeline breach that we had a few years ago where they attacked the Colonial Pipeline?
I
So
think so. It's
so
been
that
a
was a
while.
ransomware attack, right?
Okay.
And that prevented remember gas prices shot up for a hot minute, right?
Yeah.
So, that was an attack on the system. But if you look at CDK and who are they providing services to and the network that they have, this is prime
Yeah.
target, right? Because you're able to do that. You're able to impact a lot of people, and there's going to be a lot of
So
people that are relying on it. And what that does, it puts pressure on CDK to pay the ransom, which is the one thing they shouldn't do.
you're right,
You
because
know?
you never back down from a terrorist. I don't know, that's a military thing, but still, I don't know, man, we're gonna find this guy, but, I mean, it's probably like, I mean, needle in a haystack if I had to guess. Oh my gosh,
Well,
man.
what's
It's
kind
such a
of
nightmare for
interesting
that company, right?
is you kind of talk about cat and mouse, right? So,
Yeah,
in the industry, right? Typically, you don't necessarily go at and in a lot of cases you can't go after these people, but
right,
you don't want to shut some of these people down because
right.
if you can learn their tactics and behaviors, then you can do things to watch out for that behavior going forward.
In the future,
If
yeah.
you snuff them out, if you stop them, right, then they can just start up somewhere else with completely new tactics, and you know, you have no idea. But if you can hone in on them, you can actually kind of keep an eye on them and watch what they're doing, right? So if they find these people, that's kind of what they want to do, is they want to be able to keep an eye on them and watch what
So
they're
just
doing.
let them keep doing their thing?
No, because at that point you basically, like, think about it this way, right?
This
If you knew a bank robbing crew, right?
Yeah.
And you knew that they were going to rob banks, you if you tried to go after them and they all scattered, right? Then you'd have to
Yeah.
find each one of individually, and they could all do other
Right.
things and, you know, get into
Okay.
other trouble, right?
Dragon.
But if you monitor them 24/7 and you
Okay.
watched every move they made, when they went to go rob this bank, you could lock all the doors so they couldn't get in.
Right.
And if they went to go rob this bank, you could alert the authorities to be standing outside when they showed up, right?
Got it.
Essentially, cybersecurity is a lot like that, to where
Right.
you're doing things to discourage people from getting into your network, right? There's
Right.
no such thing as a bulletproof cybersecurity network. There just isn't. There's
Right.
nobody today that can say nobody can breach us. We're unbreachable. We're
Wow.
impenetrable, right?
That's so
There's a
crazy,
law of
man.
diminishing returns, meaning that at some point, you know, for every dollar you spend, you're only going to get so much more security. And at some point, is it really worth it? Right.
Yeah.
But the goal is, and we used to have a term back in the day, it was defense in depth, right? Now the term is zero trust. And what zero trust tells everybody is that you're assuming compromise. You're assuming
Yeah.
people are in your environment.
Instantly.
So you're checking everything.
All right. So
You're validating everything, right?
okay. So let's bring it down a little bit. We're
Yep.
getting a little tech, like
Getting a little techie.
a little crazy.
We're getting
A little techie. I
techie.
know that you know, I obviously don't know anything about anything according to the interweb and some comments, but nonetheless, it's crazy. That's a lot. It affects a lot. And it affects a lot
So
of people. It's
but
gonna
the real
affect some
question
jobs,
is,
I'm
for
sure,
how
right? I
long?
mean,
Right? The
yeah.
real question is, how much longer is this going to go on? And you and I talked about this early on.
Right.
Last year, last summer,
Okay.
the auto industry did over $1.2 trillion in business, right?
Wow.
During this time of year.
Trillion.
Trillion. So here's the thing. If they did
And this is
1.2
prime
trillion,
months. So imagine 3 months wiped off.
it is prime. It is a prime time, right?
Yeah.
But this is summer. This is when people are buying cars and that sort of thing. And so here's the big issue that we've got right now is it's going to there's no way around it. It's going to delay, you know, business. It's going to delay transactions. It's going to make it hard for people to do stuff. It's even going to make it hard for dealerships to service vehicles, because
So
they use CDK for scheduling.
wow. So next question. Do they just scrap CDK? Do the dealerships just scrap the company and go to another company and say, okay, well, that didn't work. It's obviously down. We're done with it. What can you do for us? And they find a better company that's maybe not as vulnerable, or do they have to stick it out with this company? Like,
I don't
how does
know
that
that
work?
I don't know that you're going to find another company that's not as vulnerable, right? I mean, every company's got, you know, there's risks everywhere,
Vulnerabilities, yeah.
right?
So I mean, I
So
guess
what I would say is that there could be a competitor that they could go to, right? Who can come in
right.
and say, we have better security practices, we've got better this,
Yeah.
better that, whatever. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter who they go to. There's going to be a transition period, right? They're going to have to take and reset up all the things that they were doing before. They've got to set up
Conspiracy theory. Maybe the competitor is the company that's doing the attack.
I would hope not. For those of you that are listening, I would hope that that's not the case. But I mean, the thing to think about here is, even if they were able to recover from this tomorrow, it's going to take some time, right?
Right.
And the one thing that we're seeing, and Ford is doing a great job right now, because Ford is actually working on workarounds and alternative solutions so that they can process business, right?
They have a backup option to try
it
to keep
affects
things going and
15,000
rolling.
dealers. So that's not
So
every dealer in the country, right?
Is it just one brand, or is it
No.
Of all brands.
It's
I didn't
a
look at it and see
yeah,
if it was
it's a
multiple
cross.
brands.
It's multiple brands. It's
Ah,
multiple business types. So not just new cars,
yeah.
but used cars as well, right?
Do you think it will affect the price of cars up or down?
I don't think it'll affect it.
Don't
I
think so.
mean,
Delay
okay,
the
so let me walk that back a
inevitable?
little bit,
Yeah.
right? So if I went to go buy a car today, right? And
Yeah.
I walked in the dealership and they said, "We've got the car, but you can't buy it today because I've got no way to sell it to you," right? The
Okay.
likelihood of a dealer telling you that, you and I bought enough cars that
That's
the guy's
they
gonna tell you,
look, they will that guy will
"Sign
drive you
yeah,
to the tag office with the paperwork. Trust me.
sign the back of this napkin, and I'll make sure that
Yeah.
you get this car delivered to your house by the end of the week," right? I I
Absolutely.
I really doubt that anybody's gonna it would prevent anybody from selling them a car.
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to is your comfort level,
Yeah.
right? If you and I went to a dealership today and they can't
How
give
much
you
of my data
they can't give you
is
anything
missing there?
physically for the car. You've got to give them all your stuff manually, and then when you walk away, you don't have anything. You don't have any printouts. You haven't signed
Yeah.
anything official for the car, right? And you know what
Yeah.
was really funny was
Well,
we were at a dealership on Friday.
right.
Saturday. We were at a dealership on Saturday evening, and I was out just screwing around looking at cars because I told you I rented that Bronco when I was in
Right.
Arizona,
Right,
and it
right.
made me miss the Bronco. I really love driving that car. I love being up
Yeah.
high.
The
I
worst.
love I love that attitude where you're like,
Yeah.
I could just drive over that curb. No, I don't need to be here. Like, what am I doing stuck in this? I could just drive over that,
Here we go.
or I'll just park up on that hill. I'll park up on that
Right.
hill. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So
Dirt road
I
doesn't matter.
I miss that. I also miss the fact that I could just take the roof off in the evenings and have
Yeah.
like a totally open air
Convertible.
experience.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I miss having the utility of a truck. So I was kind of looking at trucks too.
Right.
We talked in the channel about maybe me getting the Fast and the Furious truck.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, I was just kind of like looking around because I'm ready to make that move and
Right.
get another daily. I just don't know what I want yet. And so, and really quick, if anybody has suggestions, put them in the
Yeah.
comments. Let me know what you think would be a really cool daily.
A
And just
Tesla,
remember,
obviously.
stop it. And just remember, I've got this is my primary vehicle. I put a lot of miles on it. I'm people in and out of my car and that sort of thing. But with that in mind, like I was walking off and somebody came over and said something to me and they were like, "Hey, can I help you? Is there anything?" And I said,
Of
"No,
course
no,
they
I'm
did.
just looking around."
Yeah.
And I ended up finding out that guy was friends with one of my friends who's the general manager, and we started chatting away. And he was talking to me, and his customers came out
Right.
of finance, and he said, it's been good talking to you. I got to run over and talk to them. And he walked over to them, and one of the last things I heard before I walked away was, "Hey, when we're able to give you paperwork, I'll make sure you guys get paperwork for the truck." And I thought, well, it's late on a Saturday, banks are closed,
Right.
so he's probably tomorrow, going to have
Right.
them come back in, sign some final paperwork, and be done. It didn't
Right.
hit me until we read the article, and I was like,
Cyber attack.
oh man,
Yeah.
that probably is connected. And then what was crazy
Yeah.
was 2 days later, I called because I have a car in that dealership for service.
Right.
And I called and I was like, what's the ETA? And
No,
they
we have no
said,
idea.
there is no ETA. We don't know when the part's going to be here because we have no way to track it. We have no update for you as far as the car is concerned. And they said,
Wow.
right now we're dealing with the fallout from the CDK breach.
Wow.
And it's crazy. And
Just
take a step back here for a second, right? Think about all the major breaches that your data and my data has probably been part
yeah.
of recently,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
AT&T was
Yeah.
a big one recently. AT&T
Yep.
breach, you've got the Home Depot, you've had Sony breach, you've had all sorts of things.
So
So
let's talk about our sponsor of the day. It's Norton VPN.
yeah,
I'm
hey
just kidding,
Norton,
but if Norton wants to jump in, holler at
yeah, if you want
us.
to sponsor us, feel free. No, but for those of you who are
Yeah.
interested in us sharing wisdom and a tip with you,
Yeah.
if you don't have your credit frozen, freeze it.
Yeah.
It'll still
You'll still have
be
access to it.
affected. Yeah, you'll still have
Yeah.
access to it. It'll be
You need it,
affected
you can get
by
it.
your good payments, so you don't have to
Yep.
worry about it like stopping at whatever number you're at now.
Yeah.
But yeah, freeze your credit if you can freeze it. Do credit monitoring, which is always a
Yep.
good thing to do. Because the truth of the matter is, our data, your data, my data, is more readily
it's worth money.
accessible out in the network than it ever has been before, right?
Yeah,
And with
man.
stuff like this, we're seeing more and more people are vulnerable to these sorts of things. So
And
I'm
that's
just
the other part I'm more concerned with on the whole thing. All of it is, I mean, yeah, I'm sorry the dealers are having delays. I'm sorry that this is happening. But the main thing really isn't that. The main thing is how much of personal data has left this company's control that did all of these things for these companies, all 15,000 dealerships, and however many multi million transactions you can imagine if they're doing trillions of dollars a year. Um, how much of this data has just went onto the internet?
to be honest with you, John, I don't think we'll know. I don't think we'll know. I
Yeah.
don't think they'll ever know. I think that they're
Yeah.
going to have to, they're probably going to have to, if your data, my data, people's data was
Yeah.
stored during this as part of CDK's offering to the different
Yeah.
dealerships. I think that they're probably going to have to offer some sort of credit monitoring to people.
Absolutely.
But I
How
mean,
much money do you think it's gonna cost them?
oh, it's
Just
going to be
imagine multi-million
it's
people
going to be
get a letter in the
multi-millions of
mail that says,
dollars.
"Sign up for this, it's free,"
Yep.
because we lost your data. And then the other thing, I made fun of the Chevy dealership that I was buying the Corvettes through. They did everything manual. And when I say manual, it's like 1987 walking in and they're printing it out of the inkjet thing, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
and I was like, "Dude, this is crazy." Like, it's 21 when I bought the first car, and I was kind of set back by it. And now I'm like, man, I'm so glad they did it that way.
Yeah. Well,
But
in
hey,
2020, I bought that F-150 from a dealership in was it Red Bank, I think it was, or Red Springs, North
yeah,
Carolina. And you want to talk about manual? I
yeah.
mean, this thing was an
Press
old
hard
brick
3
building.
copies.
Yeah, old
Yeah,
brick building had like 3 different, rooms in it total, right?
yeah,
Everybody there was kind of, just old school.
yeah,
And I signed it. For those of you who've never heard of one, I signed a carbon copy of a couple of these things.
yeah.
And I was like,
That's
okay.
same. That's what I did when I bought the Corvettes. I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's the way they did it, and that's cool. But hey, sometimes staying in the old times might be a good thing for a company.
Yeah, you
Just
never
never
know.
know.
Well, here's
Yeah,
the thing. I think this is a developing story. I think we've got more to come on this
yeah.
one. It's crazy. And for those of you who've lasted this long in the video, I apologize if we got a little
Yeah.
bit of techie into it, right?
I don't
But
know, man. We know nothing.
you
We're
can
learning.
tell this is something I'm passionate about.
Absolutely.
But this is one of those things that I think is going to be, we're going to have to see it develop through and see what comes out of it, because
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, this isn't the end.
Yeah.
Dealerships are still dealing with this today, and there is no ETA as to when they're going
Nope.
to recover.
I'm excited to see what comes of it, but at the same time, it's it's interesting. I think it's gonna hurt the end user more than anybody else, and that's the
I
sad part.
I agree. I
That's the
agree.
person that's gonna suffer. The person that's just finally getting their credit straight, just finally bought their first car, and in 6 months they're gonna get hit with some kind of you know bank account drained because of whatever. It sucks. That's the part that
But you know
sucks. That's
what?
the
It
scary
may
part.
not that's probably worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
The other scenario is, whether it's the person that just got their credit straight, or the person that is, ready for their first sports car or their first
Yep.
Corvette, or they're
Yeah.
ready for, their first truck or whatever,
Yep.
right? They're going to go to the dealership, and it's going to be one of the worst experiences that they've had, because there's
Yeah.
just no way to do it efficiently. And for all those people right now who have cars that are
Yeah.
at the dealerships, or that are
Getting
scheduled to be at the
serviced.
dealerships
Oh,
getting
man.
service, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
nightmare.
That's gonna be crazy, man. So, let us know in the comments what y'all think is gonna be the worst, worst part of this whole outcome. And also, is it affecting you? Let us know.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your story about it. I can only imagine the things that are going through. I'm not dealing with any dealers right now because I'm working on my own stuff that keeps breaking. But you know, hadn't had to change any spare tires, so I guess I'm good.
There you go.
Anyways, I'm just being salty about the comments. Thanks, guys, for commenting. I really appreciate it, honestly. And we've had fun with it. Truly, truly, comment below and let us know what you think. Thanks.
And again, if you've lasted this long, we appreciate you. Come back for more. We've definitely got more stuff to talk about. We want to talk more about cars. We're hoping to be in some cars coming up here soon. So hopefully we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.
See you guys. Thank you again. Peace.